Hello, and welcome to the Viva La Vulva Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Cara Quant, and I thank you for joining me today. I have a special guest on the podcast today, my dear friend, my colleague, my friend from med school, Dr. Maya Benitez is on, and we are talking all about the myths of pregnancy today. She is currently pregnant with her first child. And so Anne is a doctor. And so she has compiled some myths that, she didn't know before pregnancy, that now during pregnancy, you've done research showing that that is a myth. So actually some of the ones are pretty surprising. I mean, I've never been pregnant. I do plan on becoming pregnant. So it is good for me and other people to know about some of the myths. So thank you, Dr. Maya, for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I am a little over 6 months pregnant with my first, which is crazy. Definitely, it's a whole different world, different experience when you're actually pregnant versus teaching your patients about prenatal care and what to expect when you're experiencing it. That's the real lesson. So I'm happy to be on.
Yes. And so I, can do research. I know about pregnancy. I've learned about it during med school, or we learned about it during med school. Pregnancy is definitely a time of hormone changes. So like in the beginning of pregnancy, you have an increase of the HCG hormone that's produced by the baby. Then later in the pregnancy, you have an increase of estrogen and progesterone and prolactin. And that leads to things like breast tenderness and increase in breast size and back pain and morning sickness.
And back pain and back pain and back pain. Going through it right now.
Yeah. So there's a lot of changes that a woman has of her body during pregnancy, which is a beautiful thing. But I know like some people just don't expect it, or they just haven't heard from it from other people. So it's good to know about the myths of pregnancy.
Totally.
So what would you say? So we're gonna go top 5. So what would you say number 5 is of a myth of pregnancy?
Okay, so this is less, I guess, medical, but when I first got pregnant, I was like, I need to stock up Amazon Prime about 6 bottles of cocoa butter every 2 months. So I do not get stretch marks. This is going to be it. I have it figured out, etc. And after doing a lot of research on the different types, there's so many different types of oils and lotions that you can use on your growing belly, which will obviously inevitably stretch, to try to prevent stretch marks, which for some people is really important. I mean, it may seem like, some people may say that it's a little superficial to think about that, but I mean, it's important to feel good when you're pregnant and not worry after pregnancy. And so I wouldn't say it falls under that category at all. As far as importance. So, but after doing my research, cocoa butter is not the end all be all to preventing stretch marks at all. Actually, stretch marks are probably more so into the category of genetic. So if your mom, your sisters had stretch marks before you, then you're probably going to be more predisposed to getting stretch marks, whether you use like the $500 stretch mark cream versus the cocoa butter that, I wanted to stockpile, which I did in the beginning. But it's important altogether to keep your belly moisturized, and every single day, make sure whatever you choose, hopefully it's not the $500 cream, because, depending on your genetic predisposition, that you're moisturizing every single day, because the belly is growing, and it's growing at a significant rate for some that are carrying one or multiples. But it may or may not completely prevent stretch marks. It's more of a genetic predisposition. So that's what I learned through the research.
Okay, so doing moisturizer in general will help. So it doesn't matter if it's cocoa butter or just plain old Aveeno or Cetaphil or some type of moisturizer, as long as you're moisturizing your belly to help with your skin.
It'll just help with this elasticity of your
Yeah,
skin, but it may or may not prevent
the
stretch
stretch
marks.
marks.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's more of a
Um,
genetic thing.
yeah,
I
yeah,
believe my mom
exactly.
had it, so my mom has stretch marks, so I will probably have it. But she also had 5 children, and I don't plan on having 5 children. So
Okay, exactly. So that counts too, as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 5 would be the cocoa butter as not the thing, and genetics is more playing a role in stretch marks.
Yeah,
Okay.
cocoa butter is just not the end all be all. It is not the cure.
Yeah.
You have to take into account that there is a genetic predisposition. So moisturize, that's important every single day, but don't go ham on $500 million products. Like, just moisturize and keep it pushing.
Okay. Okay. So what's number 4 of this myths of pregnancy?
Let's see. I would say number 4 myth is that during pregnancy, sex will hurt the baby.
And
So
yes,
that
I've
is a,
heard that quite often from, people that aren't doctors, but I've heard that a lot.
yeah. So that's an absolute myth. It's 100% not true. If you just look at the physiology, which I think you have a little structural representation
Yes, I
behind you.
do.
Exactly. If you just look at the physiology of a woman, it is not possible for insertional sex or any type of like play that you may have with your partner, including the use of toys. Okay. For that to hurt the baby. Now, I was doing a little research earlier on about like vibrator play and things like that, and there's been no research done as far as the effects of vibrators on the developing baby. I would say in the first trimester is the kind of golden hour, the golden time where you really, really want to be mindful of what you're putting in your body and what you're exposed to. So the actual vibration, depending on what kind of vibrator you use, may not be the best option, whether a study shows it or not. But certainly within second and third trimesters, I'm sure you're free and clear if that's something you want to do with your partner. It's just important to have like a healthy and sexual relationship with your partner and feel just as sexy as you did when you got pregnant. So
That's
it
the
will
reason why you
not
are pregnant, because
exactly. But going back to the point, sex will not hurt the baby. The baby is protected within the uterus in its own sac. It's not going to feel anything during sex, so you are okay to have as much sex as you want to.
So in the first trimester, using a thing like the Hitachi, which is like the huge vibrator, probably isn't the best thing. Or you said any vibrators during the first trimester, just because that's like a kind of not sketchy time, but a time where things can happen, miscarriages can happen, things like that, right?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, again, I didn't find any necessary studies
Yeah.
that stated that, but I would say the first 12 weeks are super important for organ development, the heart development, and you just don't want to be like adding on with like superficial vibration, especially when the heart is trying to develop and tick along. So I would say maybe hold off in the first 12 weeks, which is totally doable, I hope.
Yeah.
And then in the second and third trimester, if that's a part of your sexual like play and relationship with your partner, then certainly it's supposed to be safe. So
Yeah.
continue having sex.
Yeah. But sex through the first trimester is okay. Just like maybe
Oh
take
yeah.
the vibrators.
Yeah.
Still
Sex
having
through the first.
penetration, still having clitoral stimulation. Those are all okay.
Absolutely. 100,000%.
What'd you say?
Nothing. I said 100,000% have sex.
100,000%. I was actually just reading on Instagram, the place where I get my news from these days.
Yeah.
And there was somebody that posted about, women during pregnancy and sex being considered a bad thing or like a shameful thing, and that it's like a sin to have sex during pregnancy, even though that's the way that someone got pregnant is through sex. So
Yeah.
a woman's body, changing body during pregnancy is still beautiful, and women are still sexual. They still have sexual urges during pregnancy. So it is
Yeah.
okay, women out there, to have sex.
Yeah.
To stop.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll just add that it is, as you grow and your body changes in this remarkable way, your relationship with your body definitely changes. And there are some moments where you may feel a little insecure about, the changes that are happening. But it's important to stay open and honest with your partner and vulnerable and like, for me, it was really important to express those insecurities out loud. And so it becomes this kind of shared moment where, I don't necessarily think that he would have known maybe, after the first trimester was over, that I was so insecure by how big my belly grew within a few weeks. And so it allowed him to be able to give me a little bit more like words of affirmation and, different things that allowed me to feel a little bit more comfortable when it came to our sexual relationship. So it's important to be honest.
Yeah. And vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so sex is okay to happen to do during pregnancy, which is the top 1. Okay, so what is the top 3 of myths of pregnancy?
Okay, so top 3. When I got pregnant, I said, great, I get to eat whatever the heck I want to. Let's do it. Let's go ham for the baby's sake. So the third myth that I would say is that you're eating for 2 or for 3 if you're having multiples, 4 if you're having multiples, etc. Basically, just per ACOG, which is a national OB group, as well as FDA and all of these other guidelines, you don't need to go ham on overeating, literally. Per trimester, honestly, the first trimester, most women have a little bit of nausea, maybe morning sickness. So you don't need a whole lot of extra calories past what you usually eat in your normal day-to-day, whether it be 1,800 to 2,200 calories, depending on your size. But the second and third trimester, you really only need about 300 to 350 more calories in each day in order to make sure that baby's getting enough nutrients. So you're not doubling up. You're not going from 2,200 calories a day to 4,400. That is not what you want to do. Again, if you're having multiples, if you're in the second and third trimesters, you would just do 300 calories per baby. So 600 milligrams if you're having twins. I'm sorry, 600 calories if you're having twins per day. Yeah.
Interesting. So, but do you have the cravings though? Like, do you have the, like, I just want to eat everything cravings? Or actually, no, some women just have the, I can't eat anything because I'm super nauseous during their first.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the trimester. Usually, again, if you're having nausea and morning sickness in the first trimester, or I guess, by the way, morning sickness can be throughout the whole day. It doesn't have to be in the morning. So a little like mini myth. But yeah, as you get into the second, third trimester and you're starting to feel a little bit better, you definitely have cravings. But I didn't necessarily, and I haven't necessarily had cravings to have 5 large meals a day. I just had cravings for random things like olives, for instance. I never eat olives.
You never eat olives?
Never. Growing up, my grandmother used to, oh my gosh, it just like flashed me back. She used to have like green olives, black olives, like all types of olives for Christmas. And I think because I was just like, I hated the taste and she would just force them on me, I used to like really stay away from them. So one day I just realized that I was really craving green olives and I went to the store and got this big, huge container. And that's the type of craving I had. Yeah. The other week I had a craving for like Dijon mustard on everything. So it's just like random stuff for sure.
Stuff that you weren't eating before pre-pregnancy.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Which I just chalk up to, hey, baby wants what baby wants.
Baby wants it. But you know what? I have heard the like salty foods thing. Like I think my mom was really craving pickles throughout some of her pregnancies, and you know, pickles can be salty. So I don't know. Maybe it's like a salt intake thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people crave salt, some people crave sweet. I feel like I'm more on the salt savory side during this pregnancy, but you know, a good friend of mine who just had a baby, she was like definitely towards all sweets, which is not necessarily the best thing. But her pregnancy was fine. She was healthy. So
yeah. Okay. So you're not really eating for 2. You're just eating a couple, like 350 extra calories during the second and the third trimester.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what is the second myth of pregnancy? The top 2.
Okay. The second myth was sushi, fish, and cheese, like the types of foods that you're supposed to eat and not supposed to eat.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge sushi fan. I probably used to have sushi every single week, like at least once a week.
Yeah.
Huge cheese fan. So when I got pregnant, I was like, well, great, 9 to 10 months without sushi. That sucks. And I guess, you know, I kind of almost within that sushi category, I was like, well, I guess I'm not supposed to eat fish, ... So just doing all of the research, that's absolutely not true. Okay. Fish is actually imperative if you have the taste for fish. Fish is imperative for you to intake through your pregnancy. So it's recommended by the FDA and EPA actually to have 2 to 3 servings of low mercury fish every week, because it really helps with baby's brain development. It helps with fetal growth. It also helps mom with your mood, just because of the healthy fats and the DHA that are in most fish. And some studies even show that it reduces the risk of preterm birth if you're having these regular servings of low mercury fish. So that's a fish like salmon. You're okay to eat cooked salmon, as well as some, I believe, cod, white fishes. You can eat lobster, even shrimp every once in a while. Wild caught is preferred over farm raised. But those are all options for you to eat, as you know, cooked is preferred. But you can actually also have sushi, which is usually raw, but of course there's sushi options that are cooked. Again, you want to make sure that you're eating low mercury containing fishes. And so tuna, there's certain types of tunas that tend to have a little bit more mercury in them. So you just kind of want to cross check if you're going that route.
Yeah.
But
maybe hold off on the spicy tuna.
Yeah. But you know, if you're going to a reputable restaurant, you kind of know that they carry fish that aren't going to make you sick or haven't made you sick before. You're okay to eat many types of sushi that are raw. But again, you're not going to go overboard with eating sushi like multiple times per week, etc. The fish that you really want to avoid are the high mercury fish. So that's going to be like swordfish, as well as shark. I don't know who eats shark, but some people apparently do. So shark, tuna.
Shark is in sushi?
Just fish. Sorry, going back to fish.
Oh, just fish.
Generally,
Okay.
yeah. Shark, tuna, some tunas. I'm sorry, marlin, and then mackerel. So these are the type of high mercury containing fish that you just want to avoid. But otherwise, you're okay. You're okay. And there are also vegetarian options, so vegetable sushi that you can also tap into to get that, satisfy that taste. So that was one thing I learned.
So what about the cheeses? Like, is there anything are you supposed to avoid cheese in general, or?
Yeah. So cheeses are in everything we love, like pizza, and, you know, people crave grilled cheeses, In-N-Out burgers. You just want to make sure you're eating pasteurized cheese, because unpasteurized cheeses increase your risk of being exposed to the bacterium that you don't want to get, which is called Listeria. And so luckily for us in the United States, most cheeses are pasteurized, including the ones that come on like Domino's pizza and like the In-N-Out cheeseburger, which I checked, cross-checked and triple-checked. And most cheeses are pasteurized on like the oven-baked pizzas that you can get in the grocery store. So if you like those blocks of cheeses for like your own kind of modified charcuterie tray, you just look on the back and make sure that it's pasteurized and you're good to go. Okay. But so soft cheeses are mostly unpasteurized, and then harder cheeses are mostly pasteurized, but they do make some soft cheeses that are pasteurized. So always check. Pasteurized is the way.
Okay. So you can still eat sushi. You can still eat cheese, as long as you're making sure that it has low mercury and pasteurized.
Correct.
Pasteurized cheese, low mercury fish within the sushi.
Yep. That's correct.
Very good to know, because I love sushi also.
Yeah.
And so in terms of like the amount of time, so if you were to go eat sushi like a couple times a week, would you even know this? Like eating low mercury fish sushi a couple times a week.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, if sushi is that much a part of your, I don't know that it's that much a part of many people's regular diet, but again, going back to like the fish recommendations. So it's 2 to 3 servings. So 8 to 12, I think. Let me just cross check. Yeah. 8 to 12 ounces of fish. So low mercury fish in a week. So that's recommended by, the Environmental Protection Association and the FDA. So whatever that means for whether you're having like cooked salmon or if you're having sushi one week, I mean, it's you just want to kind of meet those guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what is the top one myth of pregnancy? Drum roll. I was like,
okay. Coffee. I'm just going to put it out there. Coffee. So huge myth that you have to stop drinking coffee, teas when you're pregnant. That is absolutely incorrect. There is a certain amount of caffeine that is safe for you to intake on a day-to-day. And, my OB recommended keeping it at 200 milligrams of caffeine per day. I don't know if there's Starbucks drinkers out there, but just looking, they have,
So I'm sure there's a whole bunch.
Oh yeah, exactly. On the app, they have like the estimated caffeine content of whatever drink you're buying. And so for me, and I'll get to the little caveat of matcha teas in a little bit, but I really like matcha teas. And so the matcha tea, the grande, only has about 80 to 90 milligrams of caffeine in the grande cup, which is great. Well below what I could drink in a day. And the Pike Place grande coffee is it's above, so it's 310 milligrams of caffeine. So you may want to get like a tall. I didn't cross check what the tall is, but you can really easily check how much caffeine is in Starbucks drinks, for instance. If you have like an espresso machine at home, they also have really nice breakdowns of how much caffeine are in each pod. So if you like espressos with a little bit of milk in them, then it's easy to track how much caffeine you are intaking. It's harder when you go to like kind of like the mom and pop store around the corner and you're like, well, I'm not really sure. You just don't want to overdo it with the caffeine, because the more the caffeine that you intake, the more your heart rate increases, your sympathetic nervous system increases, and that all bleeds into baby. And so you want to keep kind of like a stable nervous system environment for yourself. And that's kind of linked to caffeine intake. And so I was going to say something about matcha teas, green teas, and just teas in general. In the beginning of the pregnancy, obviously, as I mentioned, the first trimester is, again, like that golden period where you really don't want to be exposed to too much. You don't want to be experimenting with different things. You just want like a calm, normal environment for baby to be able to develop. And you want to be taking your prenatal vitamins every single day, because the folic acid helps to really make sure the spinal cord is nicely developed. And the first trimester is the time in which you don't want to miss those prenatals. Okay. And I was reading, because I was trying to figure out, I didn't have a taste for black coffee, which I used to drink a lot. It was just a little too acidic. So I was like, well, maybe I'll just try matcha tea the first trimester. Matcha tea is a type of green tea, and green teas and some black teas and oolong teas, they actually, the way they're processed in our bodies, they actually decrease the amount of folic acid that our bodies are able to absorb. And so realizing that at that first trimester, we really want to make sure that baby gets at least 400 to 800 micrograms of folic acid every single day. You want to be mindful of the tea intake that you're drinking the first trimester. So I actually didn't start drinking matcha teas until the second and third, just to be safe. But that's just a little like caveat for people to know about the way some of those teas are processed.
And like, so how did you find this out? Is there like a book that you've been reading? You've just been doing a lot of research online?
Dr. Google. No, I'm just kidding. I honestly, I like everybody else bought the book What to Expect When Expecting, but that's not where I found all of this information out. It's just through different research, honestly, just through scavenging blogs, internet studies, reading for countless hours, cross-checking certain, facts with other sites, and trying to find as much like studies and like guidelines, from like ACOG or FDA or CDC, as much guidelines that were substantiated, you know what I mean? Like studies that were substantiated. So I wasn't just like reading a blog and, so-and-so said from Illinois that I can't drink green tea. So yeah, I just did a lot of reading.
Interesting. Well, like I'm sure that it can be a confusing time for a woman, especially during their first pregnancy, to like know what to do and what not to do, especially during the time of COVID, where women are probably not seeing their OBs in person that often, and they're doing more like virtual stuff, telephone visits. So I'm sure that there can be some confusion, or just like where to find the best information. So you said you bought the book, the What to Expect When Expecting, but you only got some information from there.
Yeah. Honestly, if you have friends that have had children and have that book, just borrow theirs. I wouldn't say, and it's just my personal opinion, I think the book is really overwhelming. I don't think that it is necessarily something that I had to have or like have to have, because there is just so many available resources online and through your OB, and I thought it was really overwhelming. I think it's like 500, I don't know how many pages, but it's a lot to read. What was interesting about What to Expect When You're Expecting is just the development stages of baby, which that's probably the only thing I still read up on, is like when you're week by week, what is baby expected to be doing? And that's really nice to kind of connect with the experience, the process especially before you feel baby starting to move a bit more. So I would say that's the only reason like I keep it around.
Mm.
But
I think that you need to write your own book.
maybe one day.
The Myths of Pregnancy by
Yeah.
Dr. Benitez.
Yeah. I've gotten a lot of, and I don't have the titles, I could get them to you, but I've gotten recommendations for a bunch of different books that are more spiritual and kind of like connecting to the extraordinary process of growing another human being
Yeah.
and that intense connection that you can have to something that you've not met before, and making sure that I remember to just have peace and meditate and try to reduce stress throughout the pregnancy, because that all translates. And I think that those types of books for me have been the most grounding, the most helpful, and the ones that I would recommend to other friends if they got pregnant. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, send me some so I can put it in the reference in the description of the podcast.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. All right. Well, those are the top 5 myths from Dr. Maya. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for being a part of the podcast. Thank you for telling us your experience of your first pregnancy.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it's a little interesting. Like it's your body is changing.
Yeah. It's an incredible experience. I'll tell you that. I can't really describe it, but I'm super grateful that I haven't had a complicated pregnancy thus far, and I am just hoping I have a short and sweet delivery.
Me too. Putting that out there. Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Maya, for being a part of the podcast. And thank you, everyone out there, for listening. If you like this podcast, please subscribe. Tell your friends and family about it, especially if they are going through pregnancy or they're wanting to get pregnant, to listen to this podcast episode with Dr. Maya. So again, thank you, Dr. Maya, for being on the podcast. Thank you out there for listening.
No
Bye.
problem. Thank you. Bye.